evening, good afternoon, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the fifth session. And I'm sure you had a restful evening yesterday with no homework at all. So let's start with a very interesting session today, like what we were just discussing. This one generates a lot of discussion and interest because it is something that is faced by all of us sometime or the other during our trainings. And if you analyze a trainer's job, there are four important aspects of facilitation that we manage or juggle simultaneously: the content, the presentation, the participants' interaction with each other, and the time. Now, if we look at content, it itself has two facets. One is the knowledge part of it, and the second is the delivery of that knowledge. So we assume that for whatever training, whatever subjects that you pick up, the knowledge you already have or you are going to acquire. And we spent almost the first half of this learning path on discussing how to deliver the content in such a way that it increases your engagement, or rather it increases the participants' engagement and their retention and their understanding, as well as their application of what you're teaching them. Now, let's look at two more very important aspects. That is managing the participants' behavior and managing the time. So that is what we're going to talk about in this session. And in the next two sessions, we are going to look at managing the virtual classroom. So that is going to be purely focused on a lot of specific online skills. So I'm sure you're going to find that those two sessions interesting as well. But before we start off with today's topic, let's make sure that we are up to speed with what we had discussed yesterday. So can I please have a volunteer to quickly summarize what we had discussed yesterday? Please raise your hand. Who was that? I can see a thumb. Kazi, yes, please go ahead. Please unmute.
Sure. I think I unmuted. Yeah. You can all hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Oh, great. As I can recall, in the learning cycle, we picked up the help me phase, I think. So we discussed that, and then the feed model we picked up on. We described the different parts of the feed, and then also the TPMA evaluation criteria of feed, because we should be more aware how, when we actually go into that third phase of the learning cycle, so that we don't make mistake on the feed. So that's in short the three things that were covered.
Right. And if you recall, Karen had also spoken about the off aspect. And you would remember.
I missed that. Yeah. The off aspect as well. Absolutely. Within of the three parts, of course, the outlining and feedback, and about the future. If they want to study more, what to consult, or sometimes I create what we call learning buddies, who's going to be with whom, and how they can give each other feedback in a healthy way. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Kazi. I think that was quite succinctly summed up and comprehensively. So yesterday we took a look at feed and off, and we also looked at the TPMA indicators related to both of these. And with that, we had completed the four parts of the learning cycle. In case you have still any lingering questions from yesterday's session, please feel free to ask them in the chat box. Anything that you want to know further or that you haven't understood, please go ahead and type it in the chat box. Kazi is saying EASE is not an acronym. Can you elaborate on that? Why do you say that, Kazi? Can you unmute and
Oh,
elaborate,
sorry, yeah.
please?
Of course, it is an acronym, but like the gloss or off, or for that matter, feed, I did not see the E for this, A for that, an exact English word, or was there. I mean, it was raised before. I wanted to again.
Actually, yeah, great. So,
Yeah.
actually, it is an acronym. E is for explaining the content. S is for activities. Sorry, A is for activities. S is for summarize, and E is for examples.
Okay, so somehow, okay, missed that.
Right. Yeah,
Okay,
there was a
thank
slide
you.
in which we had discussed this. Maybe you missed that somehow.
Missed that. Okay.
Right.
Now I can sleep. Yeah, I was
Right.
having trouble.
Great. Great. Anyway, thank you. Thank you for asking that. And so, any other questions, please, before we move on? Is there any relationship between learning cycle and learning curve? Right. Premisri, I think this is a very interesting question. And if you permit, we'll take it up towards the end of this session, right? So I'll make a note of it and we'll take it up at the end of this session because we can have an interesting discussion around this. Right. So let's get into today's content. And as we just I was mentioning that irrespective of how much experience we have as trainers, we always face some kind of challenge in managing the classroom, whether it is a face-to-face classroom or online. And if I ask you, I'm sure you'll be able to point out at least one specific aspect that stands out most challenging to you. So let me
actually, sorry, hold on. Before you get into that,
Yeah.
there is one more question that popped up from Ahmed. He had a
Right.
question about the handout from session 4.
Yes, please, Ahmed. Sorry, I didn't see the
hello,
chat. Yeah, please.
Hello, Rohit. How are you? Okay,
Good,
Rohit.
yeah.
Rohit, it's on session 4. After read session
Right.
4. And it's
Right.
the first question. Participant A is very enthusiastic in class. He asks many questions. He can give answer right after the trainer's question. He often turns to his friends to explain what the trainer has just said. In this case, what will you do?
So we are going to discuss that as a group today, Ahmed. That is basically that is one of the situations that we are going to tackle today.
Okay, thank you, Rohit. Thank you.
Right. Yeah, thanks.
Take care.
Okay, so let me ask all of you: what is the one single thing, or the biggest thing that concerns you the most about managing the classroom? So let's do an activity on this. And we are going to use a Jamboard for this again. And Karen must have just pasted the link in the chat. So what we are going to do is, it's a group activity. Please open the Jamboard on your browsers and using a sticky note, write any one biggest challenge that you face while facilitating training. And at the end of it, just also write your name on the sticky note, please. Yeah, the link is up. You can click on the link, open the Jamboard and write. I see some very interesting answers coming up. Great. So right. So I see a lot of answers around people who participants who are silent or who do not participate. I see someone is talking about unwilling participants. That's a very interesting term, and we may discuss that later. Keeping attention high, yes. Time is also coming across as one of the biggest challenges. Asad is saying managing different levels of participants, from when you have a mixed group from basic to more knowledgeable or experienced. And Praveen is saying blank expression of participants. So that is also similar to people who are not contributing, not participating. And there is another very interesting one, participants who say lewd jokes. Yes, that is another very big challenge, of participants who are constantly trying to make light of everything that you're saying, sometimes even bordering on indecency. And consistently, I find one troublemaker who has a big ego. Yes, someone who wants to prove that he or she knows more than the trainer himself or herself. Yes, absolutely. So I think there's some very good points here. And we are going to get a lot of insight into some of these or most of these problems as we go along with today's session. Especially, how to get some of the ones who are a little more quiet to participate, how to, also handle the ones who are overly talkative. So let's look at, we'll get a good feel of what some of the challenges that you feel today and how to deal with them. So what we will discuss today is managing disruptive learner behaviors and handling objections in this part. And in the second part, what we are going to talk about is the time management, right? So by the end of this lesson, that is the first lesson of today's session, you will be able to explain the importance of addressing these disruptive behaviors and also list tips for managing the 6 most common types of disruptive behaviors. So, and also use a formula to address the participants' objections. Now, when we talk about disruptive learner behavior, these are usually in 2 varieties. There is one type of participant who is continuously exhibiting these kind of behaviors. And you can refer to them as difficult participants. And then there is another type where the participant is only raising objections about maybe, not as a consistently disrupting the class, but has a very strong point of view or has a very strong objection about a specific issue that you are discussing, right? So what we're going to do is we are going to look at both these types, and we will develop some plans and some specific strategies on how to deal with these challenges. And we will also practice doing some of these through some simulated situations. So all of you shared some of the frustrations or some of the challenges that you have faced with these kind of behaviors. Can I have one of you, or maybe one or two of you, to unmute yourself and share some experience which you had with a disruptive learner? Please raise your hand, anyone who wants to share any such experience. Yes, Louis, please go ahead and unmute.
So thank you. In my case, I was the one who listed down participants who sometimes like say lewd jokes. So, you know, here in the Philippines, we're known to be like a happy country, right? And everyone just laughs about anything. But sometimes during the class, you have participants, and most of the time, even much older than you, who like to say green jokes and, you know, give like green examples. And of course, the class laughs, right? But then at the same time, like you said, sometimes it can be border on, you know, on something that's not good anymore.
Right, right. Yeah, so we'll take a look as to how we deal with such a situation. Especially, I mean, whether they are lewd or they are a person who's consistently, even if they're not, you know, indecent, but someone who consistently is cracking jokes or making, you know, light of whatever you're saying, or it takes away from the seriousness. I mean, yes, it's good to use humor once in a while. It's good to keep the atmosphere light, but if it is taken to the extreme, it takes away from what you're trying to teach them particularly. Thank you, Louis. Yeah, Mohsin.
Thanks, Rohit. I have had experience recently. One of the participants, he was a prisoner, basically. I wrote the unwilling participant, how to handle unwilling participants. So I inquired about his unwillingness. So he said, I was least interested to attend this training, and my manager forced me to attend this training. So
yes,
I didn't know.
I think that's a very common category, when, especially, you know, when someone is probably forced, or especially
right.
if they're not paying for the training themselves.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Anybody else? Anybody else would like to share?
I can, Rohit, I can give an example. One of the training courses I was conducting, this is not unusual. Somebody right in the beginning, when they were doing their introductions, introducing themselves, the guy said that the kinds of things we were going to cover in the training, well, you know, this is something he's been teaching for years, and that he recently attended a Tom Peters leadership program, and that he's very knowledgeable. You know, the guy who knows it all type of.
Right, right. And again, was he someone who was detailed by his organization to attend, or was he there out of his free will?
No, he actually turned out to be a really good participant in the end, but I think this is the guy, typical guy who's looking for a bit of recognition.
No, but I'm curious to know whether he came out of his free will, or was he like, was he detailed by his organization?
No, he came of his free will.
Right, right, right. Great, thank you, and some very good examples. Now, all that we have discussed, or at least most of them, I think we can actually categorize them or put a name to the behaviors that we've just discussed in these 5 categories. Right. So now, if you look back at the examples that were given just now, or the ones that were given on the Jamboard, and you can somehow categorize them under one of these categories. So let's look at them quickly one by one. First are the quiet ones. These are the ones that are reluctant to say anything or get involved. They tend to, you know, sit in the back row, avoid looking at the trainer, and they are very happy to let the others participate and answer questions. Now, they're not really disruptive in the sense that they are not disturbing the class, but as a trainer, if you have like someone like, I think Praveen mentioned in his sticky note that, you know, people who just don't respond, or there's a total silence in the class. So if there are too many of them, it's very disconcerting for the trainer. And even if there are few of them, as a trainer, you feel that, you know, I don't know, why aren't they participating? Is it that they're not interested? Is it? So that is the quiet ones. Then in complete contrast to that are the know-it-alls. What you were just discussing about this guy who says that I've taught this course, and so they are they maybe feel that they know more than the trainer. They always want to be the first to answer every question, maybe contradict the trainer at times, in an attempt to show the rest of you that I'm the one who knows much more than anybody else. And then we have a category what Louis was talking about, class clowns or talkers, that is, who like to talk or joke around too much, and often they get others also involved, and they consistently disrupt or disturb everybody. Sometimes they don't take the activity seriously, and they might provide flippant responses to your questions. These are the class clowns. Then you have the busy bees in this today's high-tech, constantly connected world. You have people who have something or the other on their mind, and they feel they have to be at many places at the same time. They may be, while they're listening to you, they're also, one half of their energy is spent on texting, or maybe they're surreptitiously checking their mails. They're busy with their devices. They might walk out to take a call, and what happens is, as a result, the others get disturbed. You yourself, your concentration also gets disturbed. And then we have the naysayers. They disrupt the class with their negativity, and they say no to everything. And they're famous for saying, in my case, this won't work. It might be all very good in theory, but you don't know what happens on the ground. You don't know what happens in the field. They don't contribute alternatives, but they always dismiss everybody else's ideas. Now, you all have already had experience in dealing with such participants, and I'm sure you've tried various techniques to deal with them, and you have a fair idea about what actually works with them and what doesn't. So let's take the advantage of each other's experience and discuss some of these ideas and strategies to deal with these disruptive behaviors. So what we are going to do is we're going to have 5 breakout rooms, since we saw these 5 categories of disruptive behaviors. And in your groups, we're going to assign to each group, we're going to assign one type of disruptive behavior. And we want you to discuss on various strategies to deal with this one particular type of disruptive behavior, right? So we're going to have 5 groups and 5 disruptive behaviors. Please nominate a scribe who can take the notes, and a spokesperson who can come back and share the screen and share your discussion or your ideas with the rest of the class. So Karen, can we have the breakout rooms, please?
Sure. So the first breakout room, room 1, is going to be Chung, Kazi, and Shanaz. And they're going to have which one?
So they're going to have, the first one is going to have the quiet ones.
Okay, so Chung, Kazi, and Shanaz, you have the quiet ones. And then room 2 is Akshi, Louis, and Mohsin.
They will have the know-it-alls.
And Praveen is room 3. Praveen, Shilpa, and Stephen.
They will discuss the class clowns or talkers.
And then room 4 is Ahmed, Assad, and Shoma.
Busy bees.
And room 5 is Nicola, Premasiri, and Vikram.
Yeah, and they will be discussing the naysayers.
Okay, so we'll
sorry, Karen, I couldn't get my name.
Oh, Esther, you
Esra.
can. Esther, we'll put you in group 2.
Know-it-alls.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, you ready? Here we go. Hey, Rohit.
Yeah, Karen.
Somehow that got really, really quick. I feel like that was not quite 5 minutes.
I think it was 3 minutes.
Yeah, I think something got, so I think when they come back, do you want to send them back into the meeting for another 2 minutes or something, or just leave it go because they're about to come back?
I think we leave it at that and let them discuss it further here. We can spend the more than this is a 4 minute. Okay, it was 4 minutes.
I can keep the breakout rooms open if you want.
Yeah, maybe you can keep it open for another minute and then close it.
Okay. That's weird. We never got that message before. So we'll give them 1 more minute. I'll give them a minute and then I'll say, yeah, a minute. I thought I had set that to 5, but apparently I set it for 4. Okay, I just sent them 1 minute warning.
So welcome back, everybody. How was the discussion?
Great,
I'm sure
actually.
you wished you
Wonderful.
had more time, right?
Wonderful. No, the time was appropriate today. Yesterday,
Time was very good.
yeah, time was very good.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So can we have group 1, please?
So that was Chong and Kazi and Shanaz.
Chong is presenting.
Chung, you have to unmute yourself, Chung.
May I ask that why I'm preparing? Please, the group 2 go first because I could not come back to the screen.
Okay.
Yeah.
We can do that.
I was going to say the same thing because I saved it, but I can't find it. So I'm rewriting it.
So if you go to the annotation toolbar and under the save, there is a show in folder button. If you click on that, your whiteboard will come up. Or the folder in which it is saved will come.
Okay, you see my screen, right? Okay, and then where do I go? I saved it earlier, but I don't see it.
If you see the annotation toolbar, when you have a button to save it, right?
Yes.
And there's a small little arrow on the right of it.
Okay.
If you click on that, it says show in folder or show in Finder on Mac. Yeah.
Okay.
So in folder, but if we haven't saved it.
You didn't save it.
In my case,
I'm sorry about that.
Louis, I was
I'll
going
just write it. So we might have to go to group 3.
Okay, so maybe we can just
already.
go by your memory. Don't worry about writing it down. Maybe you can just share verbally the points that you.
Okay, so let me go first.
Yeah,
yes.
Please.
So in our group, we find we have to deal with the
quiet
silence,
ones.
the quiet one.
The quiet one.
And actually, I am the kind of quiet one. So the quiet participant. So the first thing that is already applied to my group is that when we work in a small group, and we ask the group that the member in each group has to take turn to present on behalf of the group. So the quiet one must contribute when it comes to their turn. The second one is that we will temporarily limit the opportunity of the ones who talk a lot. That we encourage the quiet one to speak, to give their opinions. And the third point is that we will pay more attention to the quiet one. Whenever we ask questions, we use gesture or eye contact, make eye contact with the quiet one first. The next one, the fourth one is we set rule at the beginning that that every participant must contribute, needs to contribute. And just one more thing I forgot. How about
I think you've covered it.
Member.
It's good.
You can help me to
I think we covered them all.
Okay, thank you. That's
Great.
all.
Thank you so much, Chang.
Yeah.
And like I was telling Chang in the breakout room, that sometimes I found that as a trainer, I found that the quiet ones are the ones who learn the most.
Thank you.
So thank you. Yeah, group 2.
Yeah, this is Mohsin Lodi here. I represent group 2. We discussed about the know-it-alls participants. So first you have to acknowledge them and their input. You acknowledge them, thanking them. That's thanks for sharing. And then if they come up profusely and you then allow them, ask them, to share their examples, if they have some specific examples, basically. And third thing, you can ask them, you give them special tasks or assignments, because if they really know about it, they have to perform it then. And fourth one is you talk to them offline about their area of interest. You can ask them, can we discuss it later? And then, which I found it very, what I call it, practical. I had once know-it-all participant, and I asked him is this relevant to our discussion? And he said no. So then from there on, he became silent. I think these are the questions. These are the strategies.
Thanks. All very good points. There is one more thing that I have found useful, especially in the kind of example that you were quoting just now. I think Kazi was quoting about someone who says, I have taught this course and I've attended this course, and sometimes I ask them, okay, great. Then I think you can be my unofficial co-facilitator and maybe help me out once in a while too. So it satisfies their ego, and it helps me conduct the class more smoothly thereafter. Great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah. Group 3, please.
I guess they made me a volunteer, but happy to give it to someone else as well. So we had class clowns or talkers. So what we came up with as a way to deal with them would be to set ground rules, one speaker at a time. You could speak to them individually, explain them the impact it has on the class and why they should take it more seriously. You could do that during the break on the hallway. If it becomes really annoying, you could address the behavior in class. I think that is less so with a clown, but more with the talkers. You could ask them to take some more responsibility and say, hey guys, if there's a reason why you're talking, then how about you do X, Y, and Z? The other thing that we said was, well, you can try and find what makes them tick, and use that to engage them more. So usually the jokes are coming from not necessarily because they want to make those jokes, but because they're bored, they're not bought into the topic. So if you can find what they do like, that will probably turn them around and make them either not a problem in the class anymore, but even an asset. And obviously you could provide a strict warning and say, guys, we called it the eye and say last time. Overall, I think, and I made that comment in the chat as well, to some degree, all of these, let's say, behaviors are sometimes related to the expectations from one another. So from the participant as well as the learner, the trainer. And if they don't match, they're on a different level, then whatever you do, it's not going to work. So I think it's really important to address, let's say, the expectation management at the beginning, because that will mean that either someone can just walk away, or try and find a different avenue of dealing with the class. So I just wanted to make sure that that was said as well.
Thanks, Stephen. I think that I saw your remark on chat, and I was going to remark on that when I debriefed this activity and summed it up. But since you brought it up, let me just, I agree with you completely. And I also feel that the best strategy for dealing with any kind of disruptive behavior is trying to understand the cause behind it. Where is it stemming from? So for example, if it is the quiet participant, is he or she quiet because they are basically introvert, but although they are quiet, but they are interested in the topic and are listening? Or is it that they are quiet because they are not interested in the topic? Similarly, so for any kind of disruptive behavior, if you can identify the root behind it, you can, manage their expectations, as well as you can deal with that behavior by addressing that specific cause which is causing that behavior. Thank you. Thank you, Stephen. Yeah, group 4, please.
Yeah, so in group 4, I've been chosen as the spokesperson. I've just taken some notes. I don't have a whiteboard or annotations.
Sure,
but there is a for our group was looking at the busy bees, and there is a preventive part to this, which is when you start the training, the ground rules and the housekeeping during that part. You actually take some time to explain that the biggest diversion, of course, is mobile phones or getting out of the class, checking your email on your laptop, that kind of thing. So, but despite that, if there is an opportunity then to remind these people about the ground rules, that, there are some rules, some norms for the training, and do it in as gentle and as polite a way as possible. The other possibility is to take these busy bees and give them some kind of an assignment, perhaps to be the team leader of a group, or maybe ask them to do some kind of a debrief. And usually one thing I found very useful is that if you ask people to get up from their seats and come to the front of the class, that really makes them focus on the fact that this is not as easy as I thought. They have to do something now. Another possibility could be sharing their experience about the topic. You could actually ask them to talk about it. You might do some direct questions, particularly to that person, and ask them for some kind of a debrief or to explain some aspect of the topic. So these are the 4 or 5 things. One thing I've found, if all else fails, is that you can mix a bit of tranquilizer in their tea during the tea break. That often helps.
Right. Thank you so much, Asad. All very good points. And, especially for talkers and even for busy bees, people who are busy with their devices and all, another strategy that works very well is if you physically move closer to them. Then, they get suddenly they get a little conscious, and they know that your attention is on them. And at times they may desist doing what they're doing. It works well with class clowns, with the choir, with the busy bees and the talkers. Yeah. Group 5, please.
Hello, let me share my screen. We're group 5. I forgot the technical name of our group of listeners. But they were the ones with the pessimistic attitude towards the training. If you
they were the naysayers, Nicola.
Exactly. Sorry. So we came out with 5 points. The first one was to try to involve them, and while involving them, showing the positive implications of what they're learning. The second one was understand what, in their opinion, is not working, and trying to understand their experience. The third point was explain why and what they are learning might be useful for them, and ask questions and try to challenge their point of view, and always respecting their opinion, and even if they have a negative attitude.
Right. Great. All very useful points, Nicola, in group 5. Thank you so much. Another thing I have found useful in this kind of an environment is getting the peer pressure, if you may call it, or getting the consensus of the class. If one person is consistently negating your ideas, instead of you fighting back or fighting against that or trying to prove a point, can use something like a polling technique and say, okay, so we have 2 points of view. How many of you agree with what he's saying and why? So have it come from the class, and that also works at times. Great, all very good answers, and let me go back to sharing my screen. Yeah, so if you see in your handouts, you have a handout on managing disruptive behaviors. I'll give you 1 minute to quickly scan through them. I think most of the points given in that have been covered in our discussions, and you can even take a look at it later. It may have some more points on dealing with these specific types of behaviors. In case you have any questions about the sheet, the tip sheet, please ask in the chat. Shanaz, the tip sheet is in the handouts for session 4.
Actually, I think the tips might be coming after today's session.
Okay, okay. Oh, I'm sorry about that. Right. Then in any case, you can go through it once you receive it. And then in case you do have any queries, maybe we can go over them tomorrow. Not an issue. Thank you so much. Right. So we've discussed some of these strategies to deal with these kind of disruptive behaviors. Now let's see if we can do that in real situations, not real, but simulated situations. So what we're going to do now is we have 3 case studies, and we're going to divide you into 3 groups. And in your group, we're going to assign one case study or one situation to each of the groups. And this is what, Ahmed, this is what you were asking about. This is what we are going to discuss now. So there are 3 situations. Each group will discuss one situation and come up with strategies to deal with that particular situation. Right? So this is the handout called "What Would You Do?" And once we have the groups, I can divide them, or it goes very simply. I think there are 3 situations. So situation 1 is group 1, 2 is group 2, and 3 is group 3. Karen, can we have the groups, please?
Sure. So situation 1, as Rohit said, is group 1, and that's going to be Assad, Chung, Praveen, Shanaz, and Stephen. And then situation 2 is going to be group 2, which is Ahmed, Nicola, Kazi, Shilpa, Shoma, and Abdullah, who just joined us. And room 3, you're going to have scenario 3, and that's going to be Akshi, Ezra, Louis, Mohsin, Premasiri, and Vikram. And so we'll give you 5 minutes for this, right? And yeah, okay, so here we go.
Vikram, are you having trouble in joining the room? Vikram, can you hear me? I think he may be having connectivity issues. He was having them earlier as well.
Yeah, maybe, because he doesn't seem to be responding, because he should have moved automatically.
Maybe, you know, he's actually logged out in this. Yeah, he's there. Sometimes, you know, you log out and it just still shows you as being there, but he's not in the room, and it's showing 0 as unassigned.
Well, I guess I'll just have to skip this one for now.
Yeah.
All right, let me go hear what's going on in one of these rooms. Oh, now he's gone. Yeah, I think he think he just kind of had the problem.
Yeah. I'll also just go to, I'm going to 1, I'm going to 2.
You're going to go to 2? Okay, I'll go to 3.
Right. Welcome back, everybody. Okay, so I hope you all nominated your spokesperson. Let's have group 1 first.
I'm not sure if I want to go again, so don't want to hog airtime. So Stephen, do you want to do this, or Shanaz, if you remember the points?
I'll request you just quickly summarize your situation before you give out your strategy.
Okay, okay, I'll do it. Stephen summarized it, or kind of analyzed it, that, you know, we need to understand why this person is taking a role that perhaps he does not need to. And then maybe he's sitting with his friends, which is why he's turning to the friends and explaining things. One of us said that we don't want the enthusiasm to die, but we do want the behavior to be more controlled. Maybe, you know, kind of separating this person from the friends, either physically, or the trainer takes on a more active role with the friends. One of us said that make him a leader, give him a more proactive role. That could be one. I think one of us said that also reinforce the norm, ask everybody to raise their hand before responding. So that will curb his response or his preemptive response. And Chung, you said something at the end, and I'm truly sorry, but I think I didn't catch it. So if you'd like to say it.
Yes. Actually, I say that if he's explaining to his friends, he will make noise, and trainer can stop and keep silent, so that to signal the noise maker so that he will stop. And that is to deal with the situation right at the time. But then we may talk to him later to remind him about the wrong behavior.
Yeah, and then finally, I want to say that Stephen said that we can kill him, but then later on, Stephen amended that we can kill the role. So,
right. Great. Thank you so much, Group 1. Yeah, Group 2, please.
Hello, I'm Group 2. And we were Kazi, Shilpa, Shoma, Abdullah, and Ahmed. And we had a case where there is a person who's quietly listening to the class, but never expressing the point of view. and just listening to her friends and never stating her own ideas. So we came out with 3 points. The first one was in the first break to ask why she is not comfortable and understand the reason why she is so quiet. The second point was checking with a colleague or friend to understand the same reason why she is not comfortable or she's silent or if there is anything wrong. And the third point was doing an assignment, make a smaller group and give an easy topic and ask each participant to talk. So she can also have an opportunity to speak up for the first time and she can kind of break the ice.
Right. Thanks. All very good points, Nicola. And thank you, group. This is group 2, right?
Yes.
Okay. Group 3, please.
Yeah, it's Mohsin here from group 3. The situation we had, it was a naysayer who said, this is not going to work. The software is not going to work. So first of all, we'll try to find out the reasons, what makes him think that it's not going to work. And then strategies could be, that we can ask a question. He could be the only one who is denying this one. We can ask the whole class, does everybody else face this same problem? So as you said, we can get the consensus from the participants. That's one way to handle the naysayers, basically. And then there were other 2 as well. Esra or Louis, they can explain it. This is what I remember.
Thank you, Moshin. Yeah, the other, another way to handle it, we did say that we would ask him about any experience that he had where maybe he lost his notebook, because the issue was he didn't want to invest in an accounting software. He wanted to make use of his notebook. So we would ask him, like, if there was any instance where maybe he had lost the notebook, misplaced it, or if it had gotten wet or something, for him to realize that maybe there is another way, a better way, a more efficient way to manage his expenses and his revenues.
Right. Thank you, Louis. Was there one more point, Mohsin, you mentioned?
Yeah, I think Esra had that point. Esra, can you share that, please?
Is this a different case or?
Yes, I think we have made a mistake about the situations, because we have covered the how would you handle the objection part, situation 3. I realized just now. But anyways, ours was a good example as a naysayer. And right. My example was how I would ask, how do you think you would benefit if you yes. try to adopt this?
Right, right. So I think you went on to the next activity, situation 3, yes. Right? Okay, yeah. No issues. No issues. We'll make sure we don't give that to you next time.
Yeah, thank you.
Right. So I think you've all come up with workable strategies for the cases given, and I'm sure you realize that they would work. And the idea behind it is essentially to regain, if you can call it that, regain the balance of power by making the disruptive behavior work for you. And if you really need to tell the participant to stop doing what they're doing, or if you want to, have a word with them, it always would be better if you do it one-to-one during a break instead of telling them off, so to say, in front of the whole class. Right. So we are past the halfway time. It's 7:35 with me. So we'll have a quick 5-minute stretch break, and then we'll be back in 5 minutes. Right, let's resume.
Sure.
Okay, so now we've discussed some disruptive behaviors and strategies to deal with them. Let's turn to a different category of behavior that can also make trainers anxious, and that is objections. Now, you may find it a little confusing between, what is the difference between naysayers and objections. And we just saw that one of the groups did the activity which we were supposed to do with objections, and they categorized that particular behavior as a naysayer. Now, to my mind, the basic difference is that a naysayer is causing negativity throughout the session and has a constant objection to everything that you're saying, whereas a specific objection may be raised by a particular individual to one specific aspect, and it's not a habitual or something that they're doing consistently throughout. So let's take a look at this basic question, that why do people object? Why, when you say something, and I'm not talking about specifically maybe in a training environment, but when someone has an objection to what you say, what could be some of the reasons why they are objecting to what you're saying? Can you please write the answers in the chat box? Kazi is saying they have a different experience. Yes. Louis is saying different from their same. Yeah, different experience. Ahmed is saying level of understanding. Yes. Moshin is saying when the needs or expectations are not met. Yes, maybe. Ezra is saying resistance to change. Yes, I think that's a very good point. Louis is saying not open to new ideas. Yeah, similar to resistance to change. Absolutely. I think it's the same, emotion which is behind this. Praveen is saying trying to draw attention. Yes, maybe. Shilpa is saying the same thing. They just generally want to seek attention. Kazi is saying a sensitive issue is involved if emotions are involved. Yes, absolutely. So let's take a look at some of the reasons, and I think most of them have been covered by you in the chat. And we are talking about people who are not prone to frequent disruptive behavior, but they tend to object for one of these reasons. First could be the reasoning objection. That means that they are not convinced by the point that you are trying to tell them, or the point that you're making. So, for example, if a trainer is teaching best practices in growing a crop, and the trainer is discussing that what the appropriate distance between the rows in which they plant the crops should be. There is a participant who does not understand that the root system needs space to spread, and nor has the trainer specifically addressed that point or explained the reason why he's talking or she's talking about that particular distance vis-a-vis the need for the space for the root to grow. So the participant is only thinking that if they reduce the amount of space between the rows, they may be able to plant another row and therefore get more produce. So they're constantly objecting to the need for the space of the rows, because they do not understand the point about the need for the space underground. So the reason their reasoning is also sound, but they have a reason-based objection. And the next is a emotional objection. So that means either the participants do not yet trust you, you haven't established that emotional bond. They may have a bad impression about trainers in general, or about your organization, or they may have a bad impression about what you specifically are asking them to do. So, for example, say a trainer is teaching micro entrepreneurs about different methods for accessing finance for their business. Now, the trainer is of the view that business owners get a better loan by going to banks rather than going to money lenders. But the participants, suppose they have, they have little formal education, and they are objecting to this statement, and they feel that, they feel intimidated to go to the banks because they're asked a lot of questions. They may be asked to fill out forms. Then they fear that while going to the bank, they may look ignorant and incompetent, whereas they have no such inhibitions when it comes to the money lenders. So it's an emotional objection that they're talking about, or they are expressing without saying so in as many words, but therefore they're objecting to the option of bank vis-a-vis money lenders. And then we come to what some of you also mentioned about fear of change. People are in their comfort zone. They are comfortable doing things the way they are used to. And, they may fear failure. They may fear economic loss. They may fear community issues or support issues, or fear of what might transpire. And because of that, they are resisting or objecting to what you are suggesting or what you are trying to tell them. So, for example, if a trainer is teaching a group of employees about the use of a new inventory management software, now the trainer is of the view that the software will increase their productivity. But the employees who've been using a manual system for years, and some of them may not be computer savvy, they will resist this change. They feel that, this system, the new system, will slow down their working. It will actually reduce their productivity. Some of them may feel it might make them redundant. So it is from this fear of change that this objection is coming from. So understanding the reason behind the objection makes it easier for you to address the specific concern. Now, how do you understand that, or how do you deal with that specific objection coming from a point of understanding? We have another tool for that. And Stephen, here's one more for your dictionary. This is called LAPACT, L-A-P-A-C-T. So what does it stand for? It says listen, that is show the other person that you are actively listening. First you listen to what they have to say, and then you acknowledge. You confirm that you have heard and understood that person's point or objection. And thereafter you probe. You ask questions to understand the underlying cause of the objection. Is it emotional? Is it coming out of some reason? Is it coming out of fear of change? And then you answer. That is, you provide information or explanation that is needed to remove the objection depending on where it is coming from. And then you confirm, making sure that the other person understands your answer and is satisfied. And finally, you thank the other person for sharing their concern. So just like the feed formula, the great thing about this LAPACT system is that you can use it outside the class as well. There is also a tip sheet for handling objections in some of you may have already discovered it in the handout. And you can read this as part of your post-session homework. But first, let's try out using this LAPACT formula now. Right. So what we are going to do is, again, we are going to have 3 groups, same as the prior activity. And what we are going to do is now, since I wasn't clear enough last time, I think there was a mistake. But now that you've already gone through the first set of cases, now please turn to the second set of cases or situations in your handouts. And the distribution will be the same as, or let's reverse the distribution this time so that group 3 does not come across the same issue that they discussed earlier. What we will do is group 1 will discuss situation 3, right? Group 2 will discuss situation 2, and group 3 will discuss situation 1. right? Let me repeat that. Group 1 will discuss situation 3, group 2 will discuss situation 2, and group 3 will discuss situation 1, right? So Karen, can we have the groups, please?
Sure, it's the same groups as the last time. And we're actually going to give you 8 minutes this time. So we'll give you a little more time than we gave you the last time. And make sure you're using the handout that's called Handle Participants' Objections. Okay, so it's the same group, so I'm not going to read them, but same as last time. Here we go.
Vikram, can you hear me? Yeah, I think he's gone now.
Yeah, okay, he's in the group.
I think maybe once we are back in the main session, we can check up with him if he's having some technical problems.
Okay, we can shoot him out. Your timing is good today. Hey, Rohit.
Yeah, Karen, I think they're a little off track here.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe when you go over the answers, you can give them examples. I think we put them in the answer key of, what to say for each, because they're not really getting to the LAPAC. They're focusing on the reasoning.
Right.
Okay, I'm going to close it.
Right, welcome back. So let's have your views and your summary of your discussions, but let me just remind you, please, before you give out your answers or give out your thoughts, just summarize the case or the situation for the benefit of the others. Yeah, we can start with group 1.
So group 1 was the one that had situation 3.
3, yes. Who's the spokesperson for group 1?
That's the one with Asad, Chung, Praveen, Shanaz, and Stephen, and Vikram.
Sorry, but group 1 was doing situation 3.
That's correct.
Yes.
This is 3, okay. Oh, we go first. Okay. Who's going?
Ask, go ahead. Or maybe we can ask Vikram because he sneaked into our.
Yeah, I think Vikram would be a great.
Thank you for that.
Doesn't seem to be here. Yeah.
No, I'm there now.
Okay.
Okay, so the case was, let me just quickly go through this. The case was that we're training a group of small entrepreneurs. The objective is to track their costs, etc., better. And the proposal is that they invest in some sort of an accounting software to help them. The objection from someone was that it was too complicated and didn't feel the need to kind of invest time and effort in implementing something new of this type. So following the process that we just learned, I think we discussed that obviously the listening part is a given. You listen to the objection, pay attention to it, acknowledge it, you can express empathy, you can
I think Vikram has got disconnected. Can someone else from Group 1 take over while he rejoins?
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, Vikram. Okay,
Hello?
great.
Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah. Okay, and before I lose the connection again, after doing that, you need to probe and understand a bit more about what the objections are rooted in. You can ask questions like, what makes you uncomfortable about it? Have you had experience in trying to implement some new technologies, etc. And I think the next two are to answer those concerns. You may point out the benefits, you may give your own experience or experience of others in similar situations, offer some solutions, training, etc. And then I think at the end, you need to reconfirm the entire scenario, point out the benefits, and then thank the objector. So hopefully that conveys.
Thanks, Vikram. Thank you so much. Group 2.
Shall I go ahead? I seek answers from my team members, or was it somebody else?
No, it was you guys.
Oh, okay. Just reassured. Okay, I think this has to do with discrediting. An attendee in a training discredits the ideas of a trainer. Now, and in this case, farmers are being trained, as you know, those of you who have read, and the farmer discusses the benefits of crop rotation, the methods and benefits. But after the trainer explained quite a bit, one farmer stood up and said, hey, I know somebody who actually did this, but he did not get benefit. Rather, he lost money on it. So in other words, completely, it's like I'm saying something and just the opposite what someone is trying to prove. Very difficult, actually. So this is the situation. Now, what to do? That is the question, right? So shall we quickly go over what we discussed? I think.
Yes, please.
Where is it? Yeah. So using the lab act, I think it's called, yeah, the lab tech technique. So, of course, often trainers, when they say negative things, they want to make somebody stop. So we'd not. We'd listen and tell them, so thank you for sharing. I mean, so yeah, okay. But then acknowledge doesn't mean you agree. You say that, thank you for sharing this. At least so that people don't, he or she doesn't get agitated. But acknowledge doesn't mean I agree with what you said. So then he probed, so where it happened, sometimes it may have problems with the seed or season or lack of training. Shoma in our group did mention about model farmers, demonstration plots. So one can bring credibility through probing. So it's almost like we can raise questions as to the nature of his revelation or nature of his identification of a problem. So then we say, look, this is the evidence. that in almost all cases, except in exceptional cases, which is rare, and the trainer should have evidence, enough evidence, the research findings, the actual, maybe a guest or farmer could be present there. But then the answer, with the intention of get some confirmation from the farmer that, see, while you may be right that in one case you heard about it, but we do not know the full story. And that's why this is how the full story is, with evidence we present as trainers. And then we still thank the person. But I appreciate that you shared it, because now we know that there could be other reasons. If you didn't say it, you would know that why for others the crop rotation may not work. This could be one way to manage this participant's objection.
If I may add with you to this, I think Paul mentioned a good point there. In the answering section, we can either have some case studies on this, so that or some good cases who have actually produced good crops, and also we can give example of that. I mean, there will be other farmers as well. We can also ask them that if there is any good example here in this locality who has produced a better crop.
Right.
Right. Thank you, Kazi and Shoma. I think you brought out one very important point, Kazi, and that was about evidence. And I really liked that, because, once you understood the specific concern, and if you can, provide them with specific evidence, credible evidence, then it goes a long way in dealing with the objection. Now, I also want to clarify further. Firstly, I agree with you that acknowledging does not mean agreeing with them, but also acknowledging is more than just thanking them, or it also means you need to understand the question or the concern by paraphrasing it. So so what you are saying, when you are acknowledging them, you say, okay, so what you're saying is that you feel that crop rotation will not work in any of the cases, or or do you feel that, are you saying that your yield will go down if you practice crop rotation? So you are trying to dig deeper into the, or you're trying to exactly understand what they are saying, right? And when we are talking about the C, that is the confirm, we need to make sure that the response that you have given has addressed their concern. It's that, that have you been able to actually overcome their objection, and have you been able to convince them? Just wanted to highlight these 2 points. Thank you so much. Yeah, group 3, please.
Yeah, I would appreciate a helping hand from my friends. We also dealing with an entrepreneur who has been in business for 15 years, and he has grown his business from 1% to 15% over the years. We have been, the training involves the formal strategic plan, writing formal strategic plans. And we want our audience to get adopted to this, to preparing strategic plans. And he has an objection, and he says that I've grown my business. I've never written, I never had a written plan. It just seems too much organization for me. So he has an objection in that sense. We follow the path of LAPACT, and we first listen what he's saying, and then acknowledge. Listen and acknowledge is, we had thought that we can phrase it in 2 sentences, like, congratulations that you have been in business for 15 years, and you have grown your business in a very successful way. So we acknowledge his proud, and but he says, you say you never had a written plan or a strategic plan over these years, and you think that it seems too much organization for you. So we are again paraphrasing what he has said. Then we step into the probe part, and we ask, could you please tell us what do you mean by saying too much organization, and what makes you hesitant to use that? So these are the probe questions, and we of course he will tell us about his argument, and then as an answer part we can say, we can do you know the organizations, the companies who has writing out a formal strategic plan has increased their efficiency 40%. So this, we are giving a new information as an answer for his concerns. Then with understanding his objection of too much paperwork or organization, we can comfort him by saying, we can help you to go through the process together and help you to adopt. So that can be the answer part. So in the confirmation, we make sure that we organize a time or plan for that. And then thanking him, we close this objection by thanking him to share his views.
Thank you.
Loni, any other?
Yeah, I think you explained well. We can give the options that we can go together and run it through in front of you, and then it's up to you how you evaluate it and then decide. This is how we can give the confidence to him, basically.
Right. Thank you, Mohsin. Thank you, Esra, and thank you, Group 3. So now the basic issue here, or the basic thing to understand, is that two things. Why are you using that tool, the LAPAC tool, is to firstly to understand where is the objection coming from. Is it emotional? Is it logic, reasoning? Is it fear of change? And addressing it from that specific, accordingly addressing that concern and overcoming that objection. So in order to do that, if you understand the purpose of each of the L, A, P, A, C, T, if you understand why you are doing, why are you listening, why are you acknowledging, you will be able to use this tool very, very effectively. I think your answers, or your the way you have dealt with these three cases show that you have understood this and will be able to implement it, I feel. Karen, you want to add something to this?
Yeah, I would agree with Rohit on his responses. I think that if I were going to correct one thing, or just tweak a little bit one thing, it would be when you do your confirmation, keep in mind that you're not just confirming that they heard what you said, but also that what you said actually addresses their concern. So if we walk you through step by step on the strategic plan and help you get through it, would that help you? Right? It's that question at the end about, does this meet your need? Because if they say, no, that's not really meeting my need, what you could do at that point is go back and say, well, so tell me some more. What would it take? Well, I need more time. Oh, okay. So if we could do this in little bits and pieces, like maybe an hour a week or something, would that help you? All right, that wouldn't be so bad. So the point is to make sure that you actually confirm with them that the solution and the answer you're giving calms them down, basically, and addresses that need.
Thanks, Karen. Thank you so much. So now we've discussed a lot of tips in this lesson. Let's pause for a minute and reflect and see if you have any questions. We have come to the end of this lesson on managing participants. Any questions you have, please ask them in the chat box.
So Rohit, there's one from Ahmed, and he says, don't you think if we use the pact with every participant, we use a lot of time in our session?
Yes, Ahmed, agreed. But then, it's not very often that you get these kind of objections. And if you do get these objections and you do not, now we're not just asking, there may not be, you may not need to use this every time a participant disagrees with you. It is only in a situation where it is critical and, the objection itself is very relevant and it is counterproductive to the ultimate objective that you set for yourself, that you do need to take the time out to use this tool to get to the root of that objection and overcome that objection. So you need not use it for every question that is asked or every time someone disagrees with you. Yeah, thanks, Amit.
Yeah, and I would add to that too, that this is also meant for people who are not exhibiting the naysayer negative behaviors. There's a difference. I mean, there's the people that no matter what you say, they're just going to say no. And the pact, even that won't work with them because they're just out to say no. But this is really meant for those people who legitimately are trying to learn and understand and do, but they really do have just this one wall that they have to overcome.
Right. Thanks, Karen. And thanks, Asad. I agree with you. Objections can enhance the value of the training. And I am afraid I'm a little behind time. I'm running a little late. I have one more section to cover and about 13 minutes to cover it. So maybe if there are any more questions, we can either take it at the end or we can defer it. Right. So before I come on to the next topic, let me quickly confirm that let me summarize what we have discussed. That is, we've discussed managing disruptive behavior and handling objections. And these are the outcomes that we had set out for ourselves. Anybody who has any thoughts about the outcomes having been not met, any of the outcomes not having been met, please raise your hand.
I have an additional outcome. I got the quick and short of it is that I could not help but be self-aware that to what extent I am disruptive here, let's say. I mean, or am I on the borderline in one or the other of the five? And I felt, am I the class clown? I asked myself. Maybe,
You're
maybe
not, Kazi. I don't think at least in the last few sessions, I have not observed that behavior, let me assure you. But yes, I must also say that, these kind of behaviors are disruptive if they are repetitive and constant and they are disturbing the class. A lot of these things actually, if exhibited once in a while, or if done in the right manner, they add value to the class. So if someone is telling a joke once in a while, which may actually be related or may not be related, is lightening the mood and is actually contributing positively to the environment. So you need to understand that when we're talking about these behaviors, these are people who are actually, when that behavior gets to a point when it starts disrupting. So thank you for that. Right. So I shall move on to the next section of this, or next lesson of this today's session, and that is managing time. So quickly, what we are going to discuss is the time pressures that we function under, and we will take a look at and we will discuss some tips for managing time during the class. So if I go back to the sticky notes that you had put up on the Jamboard right in the beginning, I noticed that there were a couple of them which dealt with the issue of time management. So let's take a look at why do trainers lose time during class. If you start late in the beginning or start late after breaks, you do lose out a lot of time. Letting activity work time run late, letting discussions run too long. Now, again, that as with an evolved group like this, it's always a challenge because the discussion themselves are contributing so much and they are so relevant and they are so interesting that you feel like allowing them. Actually, you don't feel like stopping them, and that is what was just happening just now. And ultimately, I had to stop it and go on with the topic. So that is a common trap that we all have fallen into once in a while. Lecturing for too long, yes, this is something that needs to be avoided because you are not adding value by lecturing too long. Getting lost in digressions, that is because you are moving away from your outcomes and you are going on to a tangent which may be interesting, yet not contributing to your outcomes. And most importantly, putting more content in the course than reasonably fits the allotted time. So with the exception of the last point, all the other reasons are due to poor class management techniques. Now, let's see if we can identify how we can improve our time management abilities by better class management techniques. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the slide once again, one by one. And I want you to answer in the chat box, what is the one tip that you suggest to manage time better for each of these challenges, right? So I'm going to show each challenge, and for each challenge, I want you to write in the chat box one strategy that you're going to use to deal with it, right? So the first is, how do you deal with starting late after breaks? Yes, Ahmed, begin at scheduled time. I agree with you. Though at times, it may not be in your hands. Penalty for latecomers. Yes, Kaji, I agree. That penalty can be, it has to be democratically decided by the class instead of imposed by you. Fine for latecomers, yes. Start anyway if people don't come back. Yes, Nicola. Shilpa says, remind of everyone of the ground rules. Yes. Assign a timekeeper. Yes. Have a visual timer. Time breaks clearly mentioned. Start anyway. Yeah, I agree. All very valid points. Next is letting activity work time run late. And we've seen that also happen here once or twice. So how do you deal with that? Inform the organizer or client. I'm not sure I've understood that, Abdullah. That means, oh, if you want to finish late, right? Okay, I got the point. Remind groups of the time from time to time. Announce how much time is left. Yes. Announce when half time has passed. Keep taking the time left for the tracking the time left for the activity. Activity can be made simpler. Yes. Shorten other break or session. Wong says walk around and push them. Yes. You monitor them basically. Stephen says create a training plan, include slides, including activities, including question and answer, and stick to it. This plan should have a clear schedule and allow a slack as well. But finishing on time is crucial as your participants may have other meetings. Finishing early is a gift to learners. Yes, I agree with you completely. But then again, sometimes you have to balance against this one. And like I said, sometimes this discussion, it contributes so much to the learning activity that you get tempted to at least let it continue for some time. Yeah. Have a parking lot. Yes, absolutely. That's very valuable. On online sessions, this becomes a little more difficult because in any case, your time is limited, from 8 hours to 2 hours. So even the parking lot at times gets difficult to cover. Yeah. Be willing to skip something else. Yeah, I agree with that. That's a choice that we might have to make. Must have a clock in front of you. Park for later. Announce the last two discuss. Yes, that's a very good strategy, Shilpa. That you say, okay, now we're going to have one or last 1 or 2 people who are going to share their views. Thank you. Lecturing for too long. This is something which is in your control. It is not caused by the participants. How do you tackle this? Avoid, says Shilpa. Yes. Must have a session plan, agreed, and stick to it. Louis says practice, I agree. Stop lecture, yes. So whatever can be sent in handout should be done that. Kazi says, wait, yes. Why am I talking? 60-40 formula. Why am I talking? Yes. Absolutely. Why are you talking? That's a new one. Yes. What about getting lost in digressions? If someone takes you off on a tangent, what do you do? Park it. Yes, Louis. That's a workable solution. Control self. Yes. Identify that you're going out on, or you're allowing them to go into onto a tangent and stop it. Yes, it can be taken up during a break, which unfortunately is not an option available on online training. Slowly relate to the main topic and suggest we stick to that. Absolutely. And what about putting more content in the course than reasonably fits in the allotted time? How do you deal with this? Keep objectives and structure in view. Absolutely. Shilpa says plan well. Yes. Praveen says rehearse. Wong says buffer time. Shoma says structure timing. Have a time sheet, says Louis. Practice. Short explanation. Session plan. Yes. I think all of you are on the right lines, and I think they're all very practical suggestions. One thing that I have found very useful is identifying or prioritizing the high priority aspects during the session, and also identifying some low priority ones that, if push comes to shove, maybe I can skip over it, or maybe I can take much lesser time on this particular aspect, and maybe point the participants towards the handout and substitute it in some other way. So while content planning, at times content may be given to you and you're not creating the content yourself, but within that also you need to identify and prioritize the content and see that in case you do run out of time, what is it that you do? Yes, Kazi, nice to have content maybe deleted or maybe given over as a handout. And talking of handouts, we have 3 handouts which talk about which specifically talk about time management. That is timekeeping tips, tips for presenting slides, and creating and using charts in class. So they talk about time management and class management, that is using your equipment, using your training aids to manage your time. And that is the end of the lesson about time management. So what questions do you have in what we have just discussed about time management? Right. So I come on to the off of time management, and before that before I come on to the off of today's session. So we've discussed time pressures, and we've discussed tips for managing during the class. Now, what I want you to do is quickly use the annotate tool and write down what is the one best tip that you have heard during this entire session. It may be during the first part of the session or the second part, that is about dealing with participants or time management. Any one tip that you found most useful. Ahmed has a question: how ethical is it to extend class time? Ideally, Ahmed, it should not be done, and especially in online sessions like Stephen was saying, because people may have planned other aspects, other meetings, other commitments immediately afterwards. If at all you need to do, or even if you do it, you need to firstly take the participants' buy-in, and also make sure that people who have to leave don't miss out anything important. Allowing people who have to leave without without them missing something important. Or in an online, you also have the facility of recording these sessions. So if you're continuing and some people have to leave, you can ask them to leave and then share the recording with them. Those are some of the technological solutions that you have. Right. LEPACT is one which is coming across as powerful and useful. Get class consensus. I assume that is in as far as naysayers is concerned. Making them co-facilitator. Dealing with busy bees. Managing time. Dealing with a difficult audience. Right. Okay, so now most of what I've spoken about today applies whether you are teaching online or offline. Though you may have to, for online, you may have to modify these techniques to some extent. And in the next 2 sessions, we are going to talk at great length about specifically dealing with or specifically increasing your engagement in online sessions. So I'm sure you'll find that very useful. Now, working towards tomorrow's session, can we clear the board, please? Can we clear the annotations? Thank you. Yeah, so not too much of homework. What you need to do is read these activity sheets, that is managing disruptive behavior, tips for handling objections, timekeeping tips. And also today we have for you 2 handouts on training aids, that is creating and using charts in class and for presenting slides. These are particularly useful when you're doing face-to-face training. And we also have the complete TPMA long practice observation form. So you have seen bits and pieces of it. This is the form that is going to be used when your training is actually assessed for certification. So do go through it, and this is going to help you. Going through it will help you in your next assignment, which is going to be assigned tomorrow, which is the long practice.